The cruise ship was sailing smoothly under a velvet night sky, the ocean whispering secrets beneath the stars. On board, the atmosphere was electric with excitement as passengers gathered for what promised to be an unforgettable evening, a Sherlock Holmes-themed murder mystery trivia event. The grand ballroom was transformed into Victorian London, complete with gas lamps, fog effects, and an air of suspense that had everyone eager to play detective. Among the attendees was Kristy Manzanares, a woman whose laughter and warmth lit up any room she entered. She had been looking forward to this cruise, a chance to escape the stresses of everyday life and indulge in a little mystery and fun. Little did anyone know, this night would turn into a chilling real-life drama far darker than any game. As the event commenced, the players immersed themselves in the roles of their favorite detectives and suspects. The ship's crew had gone all out, scripting elaborate clues and encouraging guests to solve the staged murder. But then, piercing through the ambient sounds of chatter and music, a blood-curdling scream erupted from the hallway near Kristy's cabin. At first, some passengers believed it was part of the act, a dramatic flourish to heighten the tension. The theater-like screams, after all, fit perfectly with the night's theme. But as moments passed and the screams grew more frantic and real, an unsettling realization began to dawn. This was no performance. Crew members rushed towards Kristy's cabin, only to find the door locked from the inside. After frantic knocking and calls, the door was forced open to reveal a gruesome scene that would haunt everyone present. Kristy lay lifeless on the floor, her body bearing the terrible evidence of violence. The shock was immediate and profound. Whispers of disbelief spread through the ship like wildfire, as guests who had moments ago been play-acting detectives were forced into the role of witnesses and victims. The cruise, meant to be a joyful escape, had become a floating crime scene. As authorities on board the ship took control, suspicion quickly fell upon one man, Kristy's husband, Kenneth Manzanares. Known to some as charming and to others as controlling, Kenneth had been seen arguing with Kristy earlier in the day. The police questioned him, and though he appeared composed, cracks in his story began to show. Passengers recalled uneasy moments, hushed whispers about the couple's relationship, and an air of tension that seemed out of place in such a celebratory environment. The investigation revealed a darker side to the seemingly perfect couple, a story of jealousy, secrets, and simmering anger. Kenneth's motive became chillingly clear, and the evidence against him mounted as forensic experts examined the crime scene and the cabin where Kristy had met her tragic end. As the ship docked and the case moved to land-based authorities, the public followed the story with morbid fascination. The once enchanting cruise was now infamous, a stark reminder that danger can lurk in even the most unexpected places. Kenneth Manzanares was arrested and charged with Kristy's murder, his trial drawing intense media scrutiny. Details emerged of a marriage strained by conflict, of lies and betrayals hidden behind closed doors. The courtroom drama unfolded with witness testimonies revealing the darkest facets of their relationship. And then came the sentencing, 30 years behind bars for Kenneth, a sentence meant to bring some measure of justice, though nothing could bring Kristy back. Yet even as the gavel fell, questions lingered. How had Kenneth managed to commit such a crime in the midst of a crowded ship? Why had no one heard the signs before that horrifying night? What secrets had Kristy taken to her grave? The chilling tale of love, deception, and murder aboard a cruise ship seemed to have closed its final chapter. Or had it? The ocean still holds its mysteries, and beneath the surface of this grim story lies something more, something waiting to be uncovered. In the shadows of that fateful cruise, there are whispers of unanswered questions and hidden truths. What really happened in the hours before the screams shattered the night? Who else knew the secrets of the Manzanares marriage, and why did they remain silent? The stage is set for a deeper dive into the heart of darkness that transformed a joyful journey into a nightmare. But to uncover the full story, we must follow the clues beyond the headlines into the lives and minds of those involved. The game of mystery has only just begun. The courtroom was silent as the prosecution laid out the chilling timeline of events that led to Kristy Manzanares' death. The cruise had promised mystery and intrigue, but the truth that emerged was far more disturbing than any game. Kenneth Manzanares, once seen as a devoted husband, was painted as a man consumed by jealousy and rage. Witness after witness testified about the tension simmering between the couple, painting a picture of a marriage teetering on the edge. Friends recalled Kristy confiding in them about Kenneth's controlling behavior, his demands that she cut off contact with family and friends. They spoke of whispered arguments, of a growing darkness that no one could fully understand until that fateful night. The prosecution's case was bolstered by forensic evidence gathered meticulously from the cruise ship. Blood spatter patterns, fingerprints, and fibers tied Kenneth directly to the violent act. Security footage, though limited, showed Kenneth moving nervously in the hallway moments before the screams. The defense, desperate to shift blame or create doubt, argued that Kristy's death was a tragic accident or the result of an unknown assailant sneaking aboard the ship. But their arguments faltered under the weight of mounting proof. One of the most gripping moments in the trial came when a fellow passenger took the stand. She described hearing raised voices from the Manzanares cabin earlier that evening, voices filled with anger and desperation. She had assumed it was part of the cruise's theatrical experience until the screams shattered the illusion. Her testimony added a human dimension to the cold facts. A reminder that behind every statistic, there was a woman whose life was stolen. But the story didn't end with Kenneth's arrest and conviction. As the investigation deepened, detectives uncovered layers of secrets buried beneath the surface. Kristy's phone, recovered from the cabin, revealed texts and emails that hinted at her fear and desire to escape the marriage. Messages from close friends showed that she had been planning to confront Kenneth about leaving, a confrontation that tragically never came. Moreover, the cruise ship's staff disclosed that they had noticed the couple's uneasy interactions throughout the journey. Several crew members reported overhearing heated exchanges and witnessed Kenneth's growing agitation. But the enclosed environment of a ship at sea, combined with the expectation that guests would maintain privacy and decorum, meant few dared to intervene. This raised troubling questions about the responsibilities of those in charge. Could the tragedy have been prevented? Outside the courtroom, the public's fascination with the case only intensified. Media outlets dissected every detail, from the lavish cruise itself to the grim transformation from leisure to crime scene. Social media buzzed with theories, speculation, and grief. Some sympathized with Kenneth's apparent struggles, while others condemned his actions with righteous fury. The true crime genre, already popular, found in this case a real-life drama too harrowing to ignore. But in the midst of the headlines and courtroom battles, there were voices demanding deeper answers. What had driven Kenneth to commit such a brutal act? Was there more to the story than jealousy and control? Psychologists who followed the case pointed to warning signs often missed: patterns of abuse, mental health struggles, and the isolating nature of the cruise environment itself. Experts debated whether the ship's security protocols and staff training could be improved to better protect passengers from domestic violence and emergencies. Meanwhile, Kristy's family grappled with grief and anger, seeking justice but also wanting to understand. Interviews with relatives revealed a woman full of dreams and hope, someone who had planned to start anew. Her sister's tearful plea during the trial echoed a heartbreaking truth. She deserved to live, to be happy, not to die trapped on that ship. Kenneth's defense attorney continued to fight on appeal, raising questions about the handling of evidence and alleged procedural errors. These legal maneuvers stretched the case out for months beyond the initial verdict, prolonging the pain for all involved. As the appeals process dragged on, investigators revisited the scene with fresh eyes, uncovering subtle clues overlooked before. A security guard's logbook showed a strange entry: a passenger spotted near the Manzanares deck shortly before the murder, someone whose identity remained unknown. This discovery sent ripples through the case, opening a door to new possibilities and conspiracy theories. Could there have been an accomplice? Or was someone else involved in a plot darker than imagined? The cruise line faced intense scrutiny too. Questions about their response to the emergency, staff training, and safety protocols dominated discussions. Families of other passengers demanded answers about how such a violent crime could unfold unnoticed for precious moments. Lawsuits loomed on the horizon, threatening to expose uncomfortable truths about liability and responsibility. Meanwhile, Kenneth remained imprisoned, his public demeanor stoic but eyes betraying a storm of emotions. Some reports described him as withdrawn, others as bitter and defiant. Inside, the man who had once seemed charming now faced the harsh reality of a lifetime behind bars. Psychologists called for careful evaluation of his mental state, seeking to understand whether remorse existed beneath the cold exterior. The trial of Kenneth Manzanares was more than a legal proceeding. It was a window into the darkest corners of human relationships and the fragile veneer of civility. It exposed how love can twist into obsession, how freedom can become imprisonment, and how tragedy can strike when no one expects it. As the dust settled on the courtroom, new questions took its place, lingering like ghosts on the ocean breeze. One such question haunted the minds of investigators and the public alike: what was hidden in the shadows before the murder? And why had certain passengers and crew members been hesitant to speak up? Whispers circulated about a secret argument overheard but never reported, a mysterious figure seen lurking in the corridors, and cryptic messages exchanged between Kenneth and an unknown contact in the days leading up to the cruise. As investigators delved into Kenneth's background, they uncovered a web of financial troubles, strained friendships, and past incidents of volatile behavior. His phone records revealed late-night calls to untraceable numbers, and emails hinted at a life filled with desperation and deceit. Yet, some close to Kenneth insisted that he was capable of change, that the man on trial was a product of circumstances beyond his control. In the midst of this turmoil, a startling new development emerged. A witness came forward claiming to have seen someone else on the deck near Kristy's cabin shortly before the murder, a figure cloaked in dark clothing moving with stealth. This revelation sent shockwaves through the case. Was Kenneth truly the lone perpetrator, or was there a hidden accomplice lurking in the background? The police reopened interviews, re-examined evidence, and scoured through security footage once more. The cruise ship, a vessel once brimming with joy and laughter, had become a stage for a far more complex drama than anyone could have imagined. As the investigation deepened, so did the mystery. The cruise's official timeline no longer seemed complete. Unexplained gaps in security logs, conflicting passenger accounts, and mysterious deletions from surveillance cameras all pointed to a hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. What had been concealed and by whom? The next chapter of this story promised to shake the very foundations of the case. As detectives worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle, one question loomed larger than all others. Was justice truly served with Kenneth's conviction, or was something more sinister at play? The truth was slipping beneath the waves, and only those willing to dive deeper could hope to bring it to light. The story of Kristy and Kenneth Manzanares had begun with a tragic murder aboard a cruise ship, but its aftermath was shaping into a labyrinth of secrets, lies, and unexpected revelations. In this tale of love, betrayal, and mystery, no one was truly innocent and no detail could be ignored. What new truths would surface? What dark secrets would come to light? And who else might be caught in the tangled web of deception? One thing was certain, the story was far from over. The ocean held its breath, and the next move belonged to those brave enough to uncover what lay beneath. The waves lapped quietly against the hull of the cruise ship as it sat docked, a stark contrast to the turmoil that had engulfed everyone connected to the tragic death of Kristy Manzanares. Months had passed since the courtroom drama that gripped the nation, but the echoes of that night still haunted the ship, its passengers, and most of all, the Manzanares family. Kenneth's conviction and 30-year sentence had closed one chapter, but far from ending the story, it opened a floodgate of deeper questions that refused to be silenced. Behind the polished exterior of the courtroom verdict, a storm brewed. New evidence continued to surface, unsettling the neat narrative everyone believed they knew. The mysterious figure seen lurking on the deck that night, the strange security log entries, and the unexplained gaps in surveillance footage all hinted at a conspiracy far more intricate than a single man's rage. Police files leaked to the press spoke of a wider investigation quietly underway, and the public's appetite for answers only grew stronger. Kristy's family, while seeking justice, refused to accept Kenneth as the sole actor in their daughter's death. They had hired private investigators to dig deeper, hoping to uncover who else might have played a part. Their relentless pursuit revealed connections they had never imagined, old acquaintances with grudges, financial transactions that didn't add up, and whispered threats that reached beyond the ship's walls. It was as if Kristy's murder was only the surface of a submerged iceberg, and the real danger lay hidden beneath. Meanwhile, the cruise line itself faced intense scrutiny. In response to lawsuits and public outrage, an internal review was launched, examining the protocols in place for guest safety, security monitoring, and emergency response. It was revealed that, while the ship had state-of-the-art surveillance, certain cameras were deliberately turned off or malfunctioning during critical periods. Staff testimonies suggested that some crew members were reluctant to get involved in what they perceived as private matters, and training on handling domestic disputes was minimal. The company's reputation suffered as questions about their negligence mounted. Kenneth, isolated in prison, found himself a shadow of the man who once seemed confident and in control. Letters from the outside painted a picture of a man tormented by his actions, yet fiercely denying involvement beyond what was proven. Psychologists assigned to him noted a complex profile, someone capable of manipulation, but also struggling with deep remorse and anger at his circumstances. He refused most interviews but occasionally dropped hints that there was more to the story, that forces beyond him had pushed events to their tragic conclusion. A breakthrough came when a former crew member, now working at a different cruise line, stepped forward anonymously. They revealed that Kenneth had been in contact with an unknown individual before and during the voyage, someone who seemed to have an interest in Kristy's fate. This shadowy figure had arranged private meetings with Kenneth, handing him envelopes and speaking in hushed tones. The crew member's testimony, corroborated by partial phone records, suggested that the murder might have been part of a larger scheme involving financial fraud, blackmail, or revenge. Detectives reopened the case files, tracing the unknown contact's digital footprint. They discovered encrypted messages and deleted call logs pointing to someone with a motive far beyond jealousy or domestic conflict. The person behind these communications was skilled at covering their tracks, but small mistakes left faint trails. Every lead brought new suspects into the frame, old friends with grudges, business partners scorned, and strangers from Kenneth's past. As investigators followed this tangled web, they encountered obstacles at every turn. Evidence disappeared mysteriously. Witnesses recanted or refused to speak. Even Kristy's close friends grew wary, their trust shattered by fear and intimidation. The deeper the detectives dug, the more dangerous their mission became. Anonymous threats warned them off, and strange surveillance suggested someone was watching their every move. In this atmosphere of paranoia and suspense, the cruise ship's voyage took on a symbolic meaning. Once a place of joy and relaxation, it now stood as a monument to tragedy and secrets. Tourists who had been aboard that night spoke cautiously of their experiences, some haunted by memories too painful to share openly. The cruise industry grappled with the fallout, introducing new policies to protect passengers from similar horrors, but the stain of the Manzanares case remained. Kristy's family refused to let go. At memorial events and in interviews, they called for transparency and accountability, demanding that no stone be left unturned. Their grief transformed into a crusade for truth, for justice not just in court but in life. They sought to honor Kristy's memory by shining a light on the darkness that had swallowed her. Meanwhile, Kenneth's legal battles dragged on. Appeals raised questions about the fairness of the original trial, the admissibility of certain evidence, and the possibility of undisclosed witnesses. The court of public opinion remained divided. Some saw Kenneth as a cold-blooded killer who deserved every year behind bars. Others believed he was a pawn in a cruel game, manipulated by forces greater than himself. As the investigation unfolded, a new figure emerged from the shadows, a private detective with a reputation for uncovering the truth no matter the cost. Hired by Kristy's family, this investigator uncovered encrypted messages on Kenneth's devices that hinted at meetings with someone known only as the architect. This shadowy individual seemed to orchestrate events from behind the scenes, pulling strings that led to the tragic night on the ship. The deeper the detective dug, the more dangerous the path became. Threats followed, surveillance intensified, and mysterious accidents nearly derailed the investigation. Yet, the drive to uncover what the architect wanted, and why, propelled the detective forward. Interviews with former associates painted a chilling picture of a man with vast resources and little regard for human life, using manipulation and fear as weapons. One night, the detective received an anonymous package, a small, unmarked USB drive. Inside was a file containing footage from the cruise ship's security cameras, edited to remove timestamps but clearly showing a figure entering Kristy's cabin well before Kenneth was seen in the hallway. The video was grainy but unmistakable. The shadowy figure was not Kenneth. It was someone else entirely. This revelation shattered the accepted narrative. If someone else had been inside the cabin, what had happened? Was Kenneth truly guilty of murder, or was he covering for a more sinister player? The detective knew that exposing this secret could change everything, but it also meant putting themselves in grave danger. Meanwhile, Kenneth remained silent on the news. Behind bars, he was no longer the man who had committed the crime as the world saw it. His story was tangled in lies and half-truths, and the truth seemed to slip further away with each new discovery. Was he a mastermind or a victim? The answer remained elusive. Kristy's memory lived on, but the question of justice became murkier. The legal system, with all its power and flaws, had delivered a verdict, but the reality was far more complex. For the families, the investigators, and the public, the journey toward truth was only beginning. As the case unfolded, whispers grew of a shadow network operating in the background, influencing events, controlling witnesses, and shaping the story to suit unknown agendas. The cruise ship's dark night was not an isolated incident but part of a larger web of crime and deceit. And at the center of it all stood the architect, a ghost in the machine orchestrating tragedy from afar. The detective, driven by a sense of duty and haunted by Kristy's fate, prepared to expose this hidden mastermind. But with each step closer, the danger increased. A final confrontation loomed, a choice between risking everything for the truth or walking away to save a life. In the quiet moments before the storm, the cruise ship rested, a silent witness to secrets yet uncovered. The ocean's depths held more than waves. They held the shadows of a story still unfolding, where the line between victim and villain blurred, and justice waited to be claimed. What would the next revelation bring? Would the truth finally set them free, or would the darkness consume them all? The answers lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to emerge from the depths of mystery.